starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. This is Sally from Caribbean Central American Action. We're waiting for one more connection coming out of Guyana, so give us a few seconds and we'll be with you soon. Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, so people are starting to join the webinar, and we're looking forward to getting started in a second. We have some people who are going to be joining from CARICOM down in Guyana, so we're going to give them one more minute. If not, we'll start the program, and they will be able to connect as soon as they get the technical details worked out. So give us 30 more seconds. Could only be me. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We're pleased to be bringing you this webinar today where we're going to be talking about the work that has been done by Meister Consulting on the R3 EAD matrix update and analysis. The first speaker is, we hope, Dr. Devon Gardner, Energy Program Manager from the CARICOM Secretariat. We also have with us today Cletus Springer, who is the Director of the Department of Sustainable Development at the Organization of American States. Victoria Healy, the Project Lead for the Clean Energy Solutions Center at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And Emily Chesson, Senior Consultant for Meister Consultants Group, Inc. I'm Sally Ewart. I'm the Executive Director of CCAA, and we're the Lead Coordinator for the CSERMS platform. If Devon is on, can you raise your hand? And no Devon yet. So if I could turn, Cletus, perhaps if you could lead us off to tell us a little bit about some of the work that's been done, and then we'll launch in with Vicky and Emily to take up the next pieces.
Right, thank you very much, Sally, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this very important seminar, webinar. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Organization of American States and the work that we do and have done in sustainable energy over the last 40 years or so. But more recently, we have been engaged, I say over the last 5 years, we have been engaged in a lot of policy design and strategy design work in the region. We've done a lot of capacity building as well, a lot of institutional strengthening. We've worked with CARILEC and virtually all of the member states in the Caribbean on energy issues. And throughout the life of that work, one thing that has become, that has always been obvious to us, is that there was a need for greater coordination among the actors within the sector in the region. There were cases that we found where others had repeated work that we had done, and that we were, about to repeat work that others had done, and only because we did not have a central repository of information that we could, draw on to tell us stuff like where this work was done, with what resources, what were the outcomes, and that's very, very critical, and even more importantly, what were the lessons learned from that work. Now, we understand and we appreciate that the nature of our work, there will always be circumstances where we will have to come back and touch up on different things that we've done in the past. And that is sometimes the case because policy is a dynamic thing. Strategy is a dynamic thing. Capacity building is always dynamic. Sometimes you train somebody and that person moves on to another area, and there's now a gap in the very area that you address. So we appreciate that, but we think that it's very important because different donors and different actors have different capacities and different capabilities. They have different strengths, they have different levels of awareness of the political culture and things of that sort. And beyond just knowing what others are doing, it is important for us to have a platform for discussion and exchange of ideas and so on. So I see this work that we will discuss today as a very, very important element in the foundation of collaboration and coordination that we are seeking to establish here in the Caribbean. And I think the Sea Service platform is emerging as a very important facilitator of that kind of collaboration and coordination among the donors. And I'm really hoping, all of us in the OAS are hoping, that this initiative moves on from strength to strength. Thank you.
Great. Cletus, thank you. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Sally.
Sorry. No, thank you, Cletus, and thank you, Victoria, for jumping in there. My unmute button was misbehaving, so sorry. Thank you for that. But yes, so we'll now turn to Victoria Healy from the Clean Energy Solutions Center. So, Vicki, over to you.
Great, Sally. Thank you, and Cletus, thank you for those opening remarks. I just want to echo what Cletus said about the importance of collaborating and collaborations on work that we're doing in the Caribbean and elsewhere around the world. Just quickly, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Clean Energy Solutions Center, we are an initiative of the Clean Energy Ministerial, and we're mandated to work with governments around the world on policies, regulations, and capacity building needs. So more specifically, getting to the point of why we're here today, we've been working closely with the CARICOM Secretariat and with our great partner at OAS to do several things in the Caribbean, and this one particular project, the R3EAD, is something we've been working on together really since 2014. And so today we're excited to present the findings of the recent research and data collection that was conducted by Meister Consultants and also by Ms. Carolina Pena, who also contributed to this project. And this research was used to develop the content for the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Database, also known as R3EAD. So again, that's why we are here today, to learn more about that. And when we started this, our goal was to develop a tool building on that collaboration that Cletus just mentioned, and that I completely believe in, that will help improve donor coordination across the Caribbean. And so this information that was collected essentially catalogs a wealth of data related to renewable energy and energy efficiency projects, funding, investments, and other donor activities and initiatives that are going on in the Caribbean and in the CARICOM region more specifically. So again, I just wanted to mention that we took a first pass at doing this in 2014. And then speaking with Devon last year at CREF, we decided that it would be a good idea to update the information and go a little bit deeper and get a bit more data to make this much more of a robust system. So we've spent the better part of 2017, and when I say we, particularly those at Meister, updating this database. And I think you're going to find some very interesting changes and progress that are happening in the region when we look at some of the comparisons between what we collected in 2014 and in 2017. So with that, and without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and pass this over to Emily so she can start presenting the data and the research that we've done, and I hope you find it interesting and valuable. So with that, Emily.
Great, thank you very much, Vicki. Good afternoon, everyone. I first want to thank CARICOM and specifically Devon, Gardner at the CARICOM Energy Program, Clean Energy Solutions Center, and Vicki Healy and the Organization of American States, and specifically Cletus and his team there for their support in the process of updating the R3EAD, and also Carolina Pina, who was instrumental in doing the research and working with Meister. So in my presentation today, I'm going to provide a little bit of background on the project itself, the method that we used for updating the data, review the results, and then provide a brief summary of the findings and some recommendations to consider as we move forward. So Cletus and Vicki already mentioned much of this background, but basically the Regional Matrix on Donor Activity in Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, R3EAD, was first developed in 2015 by MCG with support from CARICOM, Clean Energy Solutions Center, and OAS. And it contains information to improve coordination among development partners. So as we approached updating the data, we also wanted to provide further data insights, which we didn't do in 2014. We were looking to identify any areas of overlap or gaps in donor-supported renewable energy and energy efficiency activities, provide ideas to CARICOM to support coordination among development agencies and projects, and provide some suggestions for maintaining and regularly updating the information. So as we began the update, we worked with CARICOM to update some of the data fields. And so the main areas that we collected data on was information regarding the project, program, or initiative name, the budget associated with that project, program, or initiative, the timeline, the goals, and any accomplishments thus far. We also collected the donor and implementing agency information, the Caribbean countries receiving assistance. We tried to qualify the type of assistance, and then also the types of renewable energy or energy efficiency technologies that were being supported by that assistance. So in conducting the update, we this time around used an online survey to collect information using FormStack, an online survey platform. We collaborated with CARICOM and also the Eastern Caribbean Development Partners Group, OAS, and the Clean Energy Solutions Center on survey outreach. We sent pre-filled surveys to those development partners that had initiatives that were still in progress from the 2014 matrix, and then sent blank surveys to be filled out to development partners for new initiatives. Once we received that information from the development partners, we populated a new Excel workbook, the new 2017 matrix, and then went back to development partners as needed to request any missing information or clarify any questions we had. And then from there, we started to conduct a data analysis. So to talk a little bit about some of the results that we found. So out of the 39 development partners that we reached out to, 22 of them responded, and this slide provides an overview of the development partners that we received information from. So I would like to thank all of you for providing this information. We realized that it was a lot to enter, but it's very valuable, and I think it will be useful as the region moves forward with development assistance and working together. So what does the updated R3EAD include? So it's again an Excel-based workbook that provides details on 48 renewable energy and energy efficiency projects, initiatives, and programs. It provides a worksheet that has a summary of project types by development partner, another worksheet on summary that provides a summary of country support by development partner, a sheet that provides a number of summary statistics, and another sheet that provides some summary charts. And then it also includes a sheet which includes the 2014 data. So you can easily go back and forth between the 2017 information and the 2014 data. We're also able to provide either PDF or Excel files of individual or all development partner initiatives that we collected data on. So to review some of the key statistics that we pulled out from the 2017 R3EAD update. So this table is showing the statistics from 2017 and from 2014. So in 2017, we collected information on 48 different projects, programs, and initiatives, and this is compared to 84 in 2014. In terms of maybe why that number has declined, we think there could be a few factors. One is that there were more development partners that participated in the 2014 matrix, so that could be a reason for why there's less projects, programs, and initiatives captured in 2017. We also found, though, that in 2017, although might be fewer projects or programs that we captured, they tended to be larger in terms of funding amounts. The projects and programs in 2014 were lesser in dollars amount, but more of them. We also looked at the estimated total assistance available, and we found in 2017 that it's around $748 million compared to 2014, which is around $460 million. And again, this goes back to that while there were more initiatives captured in 2014, in 2017 there tended to be less initiatives but larger in terms of scale of funding. Additionally, I'd also like to note that this should really just be considered an estimate. There were several projects or programs that did not provide information on their budget amounts. So we actually think that this is likely a bit of an underestimate of how much funding is available in the region. We then looked at how much funding was overlapping between 2014 and 2017 and found that there was around $170 million worth of funding that was still carried over from projects that were active during the 2014 timeframe. We looked at where the money was going, and we found that about 43 projects are funding CARICOM countries. And then in the 2017 analysis, we were able to look at where that funding was directed in terms of types of projects, and we found that the funding was going towards renewable energy projects with 38 renewable energy projects and energy efficiency projects with 39 energy efficiency projects. And these are not adding up to 48, the total number of projects, and that is because many of the projects support more than one type of technology. So the project might be supporting renewable energy technologies and energy efficiency. So this slide here breaks down the support by the number of projects in each country. And as you can see, there are 3 CARICOM countries, Bahamas, Barbados, and Belize, that have over 25 active projects, programs, or initiatives taking place, with the majority of CARICOM countries having close to 15 activities taking place, and with the remaining countries having around 5 or less projects and activities taking place. We then looked at, for the different projects, programs, and initiatives, how many of them were supporting single countries versus multiple countries, or what we considered regional initiatives. And within the regional initiatives, we were looking at projects that provided support to all CARICOM countries. So the regional initiatives are actually a subset of the multiple country initiatives. And so with single countries, we saw around 12 projects, multiple countries 35, and then regional was a subset of those multiple countries. We then looked at the results by type of assistance. So if you remember filling out the survey, we had you fill out what type of assistance your program or initiative was supporting. And we found that the most common type of assistance was directed towards technical assistance or training and capacity building. And so this is showing that over 40 projects were supporting technical assistance, over close to 35 projects were supporting training and capacity building, with the least common type of assistance going towards greenhouse gas emissions accounting and education and curriculum development. And again, as you all know, many of the programs, projects, and initiatives are supporting several of these types of assistance. We then also looked at technology supported by the various projects and programs, and we found that the majority are supporting either some sort of energy efficiency or within the renewable energy technologies, solar PV. And then the least common technologies supported were alternative fuels, and then a category of other technologies. I'm not able to explain to you what is captured by that other, as in the survey we did not request people to please fill in what they meant by other, but it seems to be only a few projects, but that's something that we could try to define later on in another data update. We then also wanted to look at the length of assistance. So how long were these activities taking place? And we found that the majority of the initiatives were somewhere from 2 to 5 years in length, with some projects that went greater than 5 years and a few projects that were only 1 year. We then also wanted to see how support was impacting energy resilience and climate change adaptation activities. So we actually did a scan of the data looking for projects that explicitly referred to supporting energy resilience and climate change adaptation. And we did this both for 2017 and 2014. And so 2017, we found that 7 of the 48 projects have explicit mentioning of energy resilience and climate change adaptation, which amounts to about 15% of projects. And that total dollar value of projects is around $243 million, so 33% of the total funding. But it's important to note that those projects are supporting other types of activities as well, not just energy resilience and climate change adaptation. So only a portion of that $243 million is going towards energy resilience and climate change adaptation. And in 2014, there were projects that also had explicit mentioning of energy resilience and climate change adaptation. And so I think we are continuing to see a similar level of support for renewable energy and energy efficiency activities that also have a component of energy resilience and climate change adaptation in them. So one question we also asked was whether development partners would be interested in contributing to an online database to maintain this type of information. And we found that about a third were interested, and about half are uncertain, some saying maybe, some saying no. So as the community thinks into the future of how to maintain this type of initiative, it will be important to continue to have conversations with the different development partners about supporting continued data collection and updating. So just a brief summary of the results that I've gone over. So overall, we had a 56% response rate out of the donors and development partners that we did reach out to. 76% of them responded. We found that there's at least $740 million of assistance for renewable energy and energy efficiency in the region. And an estimated 15% of these activities are explicitly supporting energy resilience and climate change adaptation. We found that solar PV and energy efficiency are the most commonly supported technologies, with education and curricula building and greenhouse gas emissions accounting being the least commonly supported types of projects. We also found that there's interest from about a third of development partners to potentially support an online database to capture and maintain the R3EAD data. And I think it shows that there's a need to continue to collaborate and coordinate with one another on funding priorities. So a few recommendations for moving forward with continued data collection. We would recommend to update the data every 2 to 3 years. This seems to reflect changes in assistance and also is in accordance with donor funding cycles. As you saw before, the majority of the projects had timeframes of somewhere between 2 to 5 years. We'd also recommend in an update to incorporate an explicit question on energy resilience, climate change, adaptation, or disaster risk mitigation and management. We'd also think about using an alternative survey platform, or this could potentially be a database so that it could be easier for development partners to easily update or change their information when the next update takes place. We'd also recommend providing a downloadable link to the R3EAD on the CARICOM website and a cross-link on development partner websites, so it could be easily accessible to all in the community. And also consider incorporating the R3EAD into the CSTERMS platform. And if there is another iteration of this, we'd recommend continued collaboration with Clean Energy Solutions Center, OAS, and the EU on the survey outreach and dissemination. It was really effective working with all of those parties to get the survey out to the development partners across the region. So that is a summary of the update of the R3EAD. So I'd like to turn it over back to Sally to moderate, and I'm happy to have a discussion and answer any questions that you all might have.
Okay, thank you so much, Emily. And you know, this is the second time I've heard you do this presentation, and frankly, I think it's really interesting. So, everybody who's on the call, it seems that some of you have had some problems accessing the slides themselves. We'll make sure and send them out to everybody. But I think the information in general speaks for itself in terms of the usefulness and the importance it can have in terms of planning. I believe Devon Gardner, Dr. Devon Gardner, Energy Program Manager from the CARICOM Secretariat, is... Devon, are you available? Are you here?
Yes, Sally, I'm here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad at all. Apologies. Many hats in the ring.
Understood. No worries, yeah. Devon. So just you would have heard most of Emily's remarks there. So maybe if you can give us a little bit of an overview of what the CARICOM Energy Program is thinking in terms of the results that have come out of this, and give a little bit of your thoughts, and then we can open it up to the wider audience.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sally, and good afternoon, colleagues. Indeed, this is you know, a very timely update to a process which started a couple of years ago, even before I emerged on the scene at the Secretariat in charge of the energy program. The original survey was done sometime in late 2013, early 2014, and that survey had provided what was the first insight at the time into the development partner activity within the sustainable energy sector within the CARICOM region. We have, of course, been talking about ways and means of translating that first survey into what one could call a live database that is also, in a sense, self-managed by some of the development partners who are active in the region. We hadn't got to that stage, and so it was as a consequence of the time that had passed and our what I would call inability to bring the kind of transformation that we had intended to, that we decided to go along with the thinking of getting this second survey, which would give us an update anyway to that first survey. But the thinking still remains the same. The thinking still remains that, as you pointed out, Sally, number one, this quality and quantity of information is very important. It strengthens the hand of the development partners, strengthens the hand of government, it strengthens the hand of regional institutions, and it improves the quality of the discussions regarding development partner assistance to countries and to the region as a whole, you know, because it helps us to understand how resources are being moved, what are the resources most likely supporting in terms of areas of development by technology, by country, you know, by thematic areas, and so on. It also helps us to understand pretty much too how much of that is hard cash that is going into hardware and implementation, and how much is really technical assistance. And it helps us to be able to distinguish between, you know, some of the numbers that are floating around in terms of development partner assistance to the region, what that means in terms of the impact of those numbers in terms of the project types and the project quantities and the project qualities that are emerging. So this is always a good place to start. But the thinking is still that, you know, we will translate this into a live database of donor activities. You know, the term READ, which is Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Activities Database, is intended to reflect that, the activities being the donor activities in the region. And the intention is that this, which is presented, will be developed into a, as been presented by my colleague from Meister. We are hoping that we will end up with something that is clickable and searchable and web-based, and with the right kinds of user authenticity, different levels of what one could call read-write privileges will be given to different development partners who will be able to modify and continually update and improve the quality of information that is available there. And we believe that this will help with the level of transparency within the region in terms of what different development partners are doing on the one hand, but more importantly to improve the level of coordination and reduce the levels of duplication, which we have oftentimes seen. Hopefully, we are hoping too that this database will also serve as a data bank for reports that have been generated under these projects and so on. So, you know, we want to get to the stage eventually where when persons go to this database, they're not only seeing the projects in terms of who's doing what, but they are also going to be able to access material related to each of these projects, whether it is reports or project summaries or overviews, so that there can be deep information related to the projects presented in as much as they are available to those. And this will form, a part of what CARICOM is pursuing as a broad-based strategy that on knowledge management. The establishment of what we refer to as a CARICOM Energy Knowledge Hub, CEKH. So this is going to be one of the anchors within the CEKH, which will hopefully, when we are completed, provide CARICOM Energy Portal as a first-stop shop that will be capable of leading users, different types of users, whether it's development partners, whether it's investors, whether it's students in university, whether it's national energy planners and government officers. It will be able to lead them to where the information and data and information are located within a seamless set of databases that are interconnected and interoperable as best as possible. So we are very excited. We want to thank Meister for the excellent work that they have done. Every time I see this presentation, it sounds better and better and better, and I'm more convinced that this is very useful to us as a region. I want to thank Clean Energy Solutions Center for having supported the first and now the second iteration, as well as those who have been supporting in the background, like the OAS and the other development partner entities. I want to thank especially the various development partner groups who have contributed the time and effort to supporting the work of Meister in terms of the survey. I know it took time and it took effort in terms of the partners being able to fill out the survey sheets, and we have now seen the results of this, and I want to thank each and every one of the development partners who have done so. And there's still time. There were a couple of development partners who we may have missed. There's still time for us to capture information from those. So if there are any development partners who are online now who may not have filled in the surveys when we had done it, please feel free to contact us, and we would be more than happy to capture that data as much as is possible. But at this point in time, it's not my show. It's really for the partners to really tell us what they think of the work that is being presented right here now, and provide any kind of suggestions that they think would make this useful to their own work going forward. Thank you very much, Sally.
Great, thank you very much, Devon. And for people who are on the line right now, if you have any questions, please let us know. Go to the questions page on the app and let us know that you have something to say, or type your question. We will be sure to get to it. Just to remind you that we will be sending out the recording with the slides as soon as they are everything's ready to go. And again, if you did have trouble seeing the slides, you will be receiving them. I don't know, Cletus, I wanted to just quickly get a sense from you following Emily's presentation, if you have any kind of additional things to add based on the update there.
Yes, thanks, Sally, and thanks, Vicky, for that presentation, which I think, as Devon says, it's moving us in the right direction, I think. And as you spoke, I wondered whether we might want to review the frequency of the updates, probably go every 2 years instead of every 3. But what I think is also important is we need to have a context of donor collaboration for this information to have full value. If it just goes into a database and sits there, I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact as if it is used as a living document that is factored into decision-making by donors. when they meet. And perhaps we might want to, Devon, you might want to think of this within the CSERMs. How can we bring this platform into the decision making of the donor group within the CSERMs, so that we, as you said, share experiences and lessons and so on. It's also critical that, as I said, we share the evaluation reports from this work, if indeed the work is evaluated. And perhaps we might want to look at how we can have a better interface between the recipients of the assistance and the donors that provide it. So a sort of counter database that says, well, this is what the donors did, and this is what happened, and this is what we, the recipients of the support, interpret from that assistance. So in a way, we're talking about a validation of the information that is provided from the supply side, from the demand side of the equation. So that's something to think about. I mean, it's just thinking out of my head. I was also thinking that some of the areas are fairly broad, like climate change and disaster risk management and so on. And probably we might want to consider disaggregating the information in these fields, so that we get a better sense as to, you know, who's zooming in on what. So I think that's another suggestion that I want to put on the table for consideration. But thanks very much. I quite appreciated the presentation.
Great. And Sally, may I add on to something that Cletus just said? This is Vicki. And actually, I meant to mention this in my earlier remarks, but one of the things that have, I think, been very helpful, and this also kind of builds on what Cletus just mentioned, through collaboration, is with OAS. OAS helped us, or actually conducted sort of a gap analysis, looking at other knowledge management systems out there that, you know, collect similar information in other regions and globally. And I think that exercise also helped us to, you know, focus on what type, the gaps that exist and what types of information are of most use and value to our stakeholders in the Caribbean. So I just wanted to add that they did a really nice piece of work on that, and just commend them on being able to contribute that information to help us identify ways to do things better. So with that, I will pass it back to you.
Thanks so much. We do have a question that's come in asking.
This is Devon.
So go ahead, Devon.
Quickly for 6 seconds before you go to the questions, because it's linked directly to what Peter's mentioned. Hi, Vicky. Good to hear you again. Just to point out that indeed the intention is exactly going in that direction. That this is not, which is one of the reasons we want to make this web-based. We don't want it to be a database that end up like the first version that we did in the where it simply exists. We want the database to actually become a part of what guides and drives the way in which we plan and coordinate within the CSERMs platform, which is exactly the vehicle that we have created to guide much of the interfacing between donors and development partners and member states directly, regional, you know, and even regional institutions and organs like the Secretariat. One of the, for those who will be at the CREF next week, we do have quite a substantive agenda item around the CSERMs platform that is that will happen in the afternoon next week. Those who have been a part of the CSERMs platform arrangement will hear a bit more detail about this because there will be a presentation from, of course, the Meister will also present this there, but more importantly, there will be a presentation from the European Union supported by myself, which will discuss and really how the development partners group that the European Union has been in a sense managing. It started out with the development of what they call the Eastern Caribbean Development Partners Group, and then eventually translating that into a more regional Caribbean Development Partners Group. that is focusing on energy matters? How will this be? How is done? And in a sense, anchored within the CSERM's platform framework in a more formal and definitive fashion, so that it feeds directly into the discussions and the planning that we are doing at that level of the CSERM's platform. So this is work in progress again, Cletus, and so thanks for keeping us on our toes, but this is the direction in which we intend to go. So I appreciate that validation that you have provided in asking this question, because by asking that question, you have in a sense given me confidence that that's the right direction in which we are heading. Thanks.
Thank you, Devon. Okay, so we have had a couple of questions come in. We've got a few dozen people on the phone listening, so want to get them engaged into the conversation now. So the first question that came in, and I'll start with Emily and then see if Devon, Cletus, or Vicky have anything to add to this particular question. First question is, are there any observations about overlaps in funding programs?
Thank you for the question. So related to overlaps, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we saw is that there are projects, programs, initiatives that are funding similar types of activities, particularly when it comes to kind of capacity building and technical assistance related to renewable energy development and increasing the scale of energy efficiency deployment. I think that in going into the details of what the projects are funding and supporting, there is overlap. So I think it could be useful to have the partners go through the information as in the matrix, see what is being funded within the region, and see if there's areas that maybe there could potentially be more support going to. Like, for example, I highlighted a bit related to energy resilience and climate change adaptation as it relates to renewable energy and energy efficiency, and that's definitely an area where we saw a little bit of, I would say, some gaps, less projects paying attention to kind of strengthening the resilience of the energy sector, which might be implicit in a lot of projects and programs that are taking place, but seeing kind of that explicit mention of those goals and objectives would, I think, be something to consider as new funding goes forward or as funding is amended.
Thanks, Emily. Any Cletus, Devon, Vicky, any addition to that input?
Yes, Cletus.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cletus. All right. My quick addition to that, Sally, is that what has been suggested a while ago is actually very important. But more importantly, one of the things we find, and we have seen it happen over and over, there are oftentimes when the development partners, donors, implementing agencies, whatever they are, who come to the table, they actually come to the table with resources in hand after seeking commitments on the basis of proposals that have been generated, and there are frequent inflexibilities built into the approach that are taken, the approaches that are taken. So you will find a donor or an implementing agency might have developed a proposal for, let's say, providing technical assistance to develop a training program, a training manual for PV installers. Let's use that as an example. And they may have started, they may have done that. They may have approached their internal have done their internal requests for the funding without necessarily speaking to the recipient and the back end before. And when they turn up, having received the internal approvals with the money in, and when I say with the money in, and with the approvals and therefore the money ready to disburse to do this activity, and upon turning up, they recognize that this work may have started, but having already gone down the road, we find that a lot of times many of these development partners, donors, implementing agencies are so wedded to what they came to the table with that they implement it anyway, because I guess of the ramifications of going back to say, well, we didn't need this money anymore, we need to reprogram, we need to revisit. Many do not bother to do that, but they simply continue to implement anyway, despite the fact that there is something out there. They simply will give, answers like, we will take account of what is going on or what has already been done and build upon that. And those are the common answers you get. So I think we need to recognize that there is need for this, as Cletus said, for this to be anchored within a mechanism that fosters open, transparent dialogue and planning between development partners and donors. Because unless that happens, the database will not be useful, because it means that the database will simply capture, in many instances, things after the fact. But we need to get to the stage where we are able to also use the database to help us to navigate the waters. Thanks.
Yeah, Cletus, if I can just comment on what Devon has just said and quoted. I'm always intrigued by this notion of overlap, and I think we need to go behind the figures to the actual process by which this alleged overlap took place, because I'm thinking of it in a very practical sense. If the overlap is in the same country, then you ask yourself, well, how is that possible? Because there ought to be a situation where the country knows best what has happened before. And so I always take that with a little dose of skepticism, you might say, until I've had the ability to look at what actually happened. There are instances where overlap is possible, but I'm wondering whether that overlap extends. You may have overlap in the decision of a donor to act in a particular country, but whether that decision actually manifests itself in action in that country is another matter, because I cannot envisage a situation where a recipient country has two donors working in that country on the same issues at the same time. It boggles the mind. So just to say, we need to have some more information to better interpret the data coming out on that subject.
Thanks, Cletus. Just quickly again, sorry, not trying to argue the mic, but Cletus, one of the things that happen sometimes, Cletus, is that there are donor agencies who are in the countries working and are not actually working through government entities, because some of the donor agencies are, based on their mandates, actually work through NGOs, some directly with the private sector. And you will find that there are times when government finds out after the fact that the donor agency is in this country developing or implementing a project. And in many instances, you're right, the government eventually gets under-implemented or derailed, but this is after significant resources would have been expended.
Thank you, Devon. And Vicky, was that you with a comment?
No, Sally, I think Devon and Cletus covered the issues that I would have made mention of. So, yeah, they cover that pretty well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Vicky. And so we'll go on to the next question. The next question is basically it's a comment followed by a question. This is a very valuable initiative. Will CCRI be the ultimate repository for this database? Maybe Devon, you're the first man online for that.
The easy answer is yes, Sally. I don't know if I need to go into detail, but the answer is yes. The intention is that the Secretariat is in the process of developing, as I mentioned, the Energy Knowledge Hub. And the intention is that the Energy Knowledge Hub will be owned by CARICOM as a region, but the custodian of that Energy Knowledge Hub will be the CCRI. And this database will form a part of that Energy Knowledge Hub.
Okay, thanks. So those are actually the two questions that we've had so 4, so I'm not sure if we're almost an hour in, and after the first hour there may be some drop off. So I do want to make sure anybody who has questions, please do submit them. If not, I don't think that we need to go on longer. Wait, hold on. There's a new one coming in. Don't move.
Sally, while the questions come in, I'm going to pull up the current version of the Excel workbook and just flip through the sheets so people can see what's included right now.
We'll try put it up for the people who have access. We have had an issue with people not being able to access the screen for some reason, but go ahead and put it up, and then what we'll do is we'll send it out to everybody after the program is over. Okay, so the next question that has come in is, will the Knowledge Hub be easily available and open access?
Depends on what you refer to as open access. The Knowledge Hub, in the way it is configured, is intended to have different levels of information that is accessible to different types of stakeholders. Some of it will require login credentials because, of course, there's going to be some data and information that is sensitive, but there are going to be aspects that are going to be open. Something like they read will be open access. So it's going to be the Knowledge Hub is going to be a mixture of accessibility based on, of course, the data and information type that is contained within the different databases.
Okay, thanks, Devon. And just for Emily, it seems that the screen is showing now for everybody, so we'll be able to move to that in a second. Yes, because Devon, as a follow-up to that particular note, was that many things going through CARICOM are confidential and proprietary, so the effect to which that will impact the ability to share what's up there.
Well, one of the things we are trying to move to is, I would first start by saying that yes, there are some things that go through CARICOM that are proprietary, as it is with any other institution. I mean, public institutions, private institutions, you name it, always will be there will be issues related to what is proprietary and what is sensitive versus what is open. I mean, that is why you have access to information acts in governments, because there are aspects and time-bound issues and all of that related to what can be shared when and how. So, you know, one of the things that we are hoping to do, and we are as part of the the CEKH, which is Energy Knowledge Hub arrangement, is to also develop the protocols regarding dissemination and sharing, so that, you know, we can work out whether there are statutes of limitation and some types of information, and how long those statutes of limitation should be, what kind of information can be shared with whom, and you know, whether there are going to be need for certain kinds of information when generated, let's say, by development partners for clients, especially where private sector is involved, if there should be some clause within these project arrangements where the private sector is required to give this information. Because let's think about it. If you want to drive some of the development in the energy sector that we require, we might need to be able to finance some of the early stage project development with public money. But if it is that we are doing it as part of a PPP, especially because private sector money is important to get into these projects so across the line, the private sector might not want this information to be public, otherwise they will lose a competitive advantage involved in them, with them being involved in this project. And so the question becomes, you know, do we say that, listen, we are not going to engage the private sector if they are not prepared to share the information, and then we lose the value and benefit of having the private sector at the table? Or do we understand and recognize that we need the private sector at the table, and there is likely to be, you know, times when we might have to keep the data confidential in order to get the private sector's participation in a project to a certain stage, if the project is to be developed in a way that will make it profitable and obviously beneficial to the various parties involved. So there are going to always be issues that we will contend with and have to figure out regarding information and data. But the understanding is that we are going to have to generate the right kind of protocols and the right kind of agreements, maybe NDAs and so on, regarding how we move in some of this data and information. It's sensitive in some instances, but it can be managed.
Okay, and I think that leads into a follow-up question on that, which is, will there therefore be an ability to update and upload from other stakeholders?
And that is something that has to be managed, Sally. We will have groups of stakeholders who we would consider to be core partners, who we will provide the ability to update. We will provide that kind of access to. So again, we certainly would not allow it to function like a wiki. We are just about anybody whosoever will may come can have right access to the databases. What we will have is strategic access rights being granted to what we could call credible partners who would have identified through the stakeholder map. That we are in the process of, which would guide this whole thing. One of the first tasks of the energy knowledge expert who is coming on board is to get that stakeholder map designed so that we can determine what kind of rights of access and what kind of privileges would be given to what groups of stakeholder groups. So depending on who it is, that right will be available to them. So that's again, it's a mix and match scenario. There's not going to be a simple one-size-fits-all shoe that applies.
Perfect. So another question that has come in, how does this database, catalog of projects, compare to the SIPORI initiative? The questioner says, I understand that SIPOR was also looking to be a regional hub for energy project info.
I think that is also my question again, Sally. I know that SIPOR, yes, had started out intending to be a regional, if you want to call it, energy information hub or energy information system. The point is that SIPOR does, has contributed significantly to energy information within the region and can continue to contribute to the information services delivered within the region. The bottom line is, however, that within the context of CARICOM, at the level of the Secretariat, at the level of member states, at the level of governments, the public service, in the public sector, governments and regional public sector, we need certain quality and quantity of data, and we need to be able to say what those kinds of data are going to be and when we want them and how we want it done. We need to have a handle on what the energy information arrangement within the region is. And for that to happen, we need a governance framework that allows the region, if CARICOM is owning, and CARICOM meaning member states through the different organs, the ministers, through the court heads, the heads of government, pretty much the CARICOM Secretariat simply being the functionary that manages this on the behalf of the organs, and eventually divulging the implementation arrangement to the CCRI in the case of the Energy Knowledge Hub. What this provides is a governance framework that is anchored within CARICOM, meaning if the CCRI, as an example, fails to deliver on a mandate to provide what is required based on what the ministers agree or what we have approved through the Energy Knowledge Hub, then the CCRI board, based on the agreement established in the CCRI, will have to answer to the ministers, because the CCRI board reports to the energy ministers, because the CCRI is an institution of CARICOM. That is something that is very important. And having the governance framework that ensures that there is culpability and responsibility of those who are entrusted with managing the data and information requirements of the region is a critical piece of the puzzle. In the case of SIPOR, SIPOR fell under the jurisdiction of the Scientific Research Council in Jamaica, the Scientific Research Council reports to the Minister of Science, Technology and Energy in Jamaica at this point in time. Of course, the ministries vary from time to time, but nonetheless, it reports to our Minister of Government in Jamaica. The governance framework, therefore, was not sufficiently robust. And so what the most you could do with the SIPOR arrangement was seek to establish a collaborative framework, which is still not necessarily, mutually exclusive in what we are trying to do, because we may be very well able to say to the CCRE, why not outsource aspects of that work that you are doing to the SIPOR if the SIPOR is capable of doing this on a contract basis? But in that way, under contract, the SIPOR would be obligated to the CCRE, and the CCRE, through its mandate, will have to answer to the ministers if there are issues. Under the construct where the SIPOR was developing within its whole realm, there was not a governance framework that anchored what SIPOR was doing in the context of CARICOM Energy Ministers.
Great, thank you. So good, thorough answer on that, and I did want to come back to your earlier answer on a CARICOM and open access, and that you did get a thumbs up that the points made about the private sector are on point. So so we're good there. Okay, so Emily, we do have the screen up and available. So if you want to do a quick run through on the matrix, that would be a great time to do this.
Sure. So this is the data from the 2017 update. And you can see there's headers going across the Excel sheet that categorize the information. And it has a lot of different information in here from the start and end year, the total budget amount, the budget breakdown, if applicable, by donor, the key activities, any planned activities that might be taking place in this coming year, any accomplishments, if the project has key accomplishments at this stage, and then any link to an initiative, if there is a URL link, and then contact information for each of the initiatives. So if you wanted to find out more about it or had a question, you have a contact and also a secondary contact. And then the different initiatives are categorized by the types of assistance. So you can see what type of assistance a particular initiative is providing, and then also which technologies they're supporting, along with the countries that are receiving the support. And so it is a decent amount of information, but it is in a way that you can filter. So if you wanted to, for example, only look at projects that Barbados is a part of, you would just filter it by the bullet, and then you would have a list of projects that only Barbados is receiving funding. So you could look at all of the support going to Barbados. Since we knew that was probably going to be an interesting function, we made 2 other sheets here so that you could see the project types by donor and also the country support by donor. And then we have 2 sheets that provide some summary statistics. So these were some of the information that I was going over during the presentation. So we have some general database statistics, a table on the number of projects providing specific types of assistance, number of projects supporting specific technologies, country funding estimates, number of survey respondents interested in supporting future updates, the length of the funding, and then projects explicitly mentioning energy resilience or climate change adaptation, and then some of the summary charts that I presented earlier. And then finally, the matrix from 2014 is also in here. So if you wanted to go back and look at data in there, you can do that. And we've highlighted the projects that are still continuing into 2017. So while it's, I think a database would be the ideal way to classify this information, we have tried to build in filtering abilities so that you could more easily sort information by donor, development agency, country, budget amounts if you only wanted to look at projects over $10 million or something like that. And so that's the basic overview of the data that's currently in the Excel workbook.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Emily. Okay, so there's a question that has just come in saying, good to be able to see the presentation. Is there an opportunity for development partners, such as GIZ, to review and confirm the accuracy of the data in this version of the database?
This is Vicki, and speaking from my perspective at the Solution Center, yes, I think that would be a valuable thing to be able to offer the donors to do to again reflect on it and determine if there are any corrections that need to be made. Devon, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Vicki, I agree completely. As I mentioned in my intervention earlier, the thinking is that yes, number one, the validation from the development partners would be useful at this stage. And number two, that we also would be prepared to add data from those development partners who had, you know, maybe missed when we were doing the initial survey. So I think that both validation of existing data as well as additional data can be collected at this stage, Vicki. So I would be happy to see that happen.
Perfect.
Great. Yeah, and I agree that those that weren't able to provide information or didn't have a time or whatever, your contributions are still very welcome. The more we have, the better it is.
Great, and there was a request that this be made possible before the database is shared publicly.
I'm fine with that, and Devon, of course.
Yeah, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. That is why, to be honest, we had agreed that, you know, this first seminar would have. This is even one of the reasons why we chose to treat the presentation of the information in this way, where we started with the development partners who have been a part of the process, and then we bring it next week to the CSERM's working group. So we are managing it in that way. So yes, that is really the intention. Before it becomes public, we want to give as much opportunity as possible to the partners to refine the information.
Perfect, and that was my that was going to be my comment, that this is going to lead into CREF next week, and this is an initial opportunity to have this conversation as we go forward. There are no more questions for now. We do have a couple of minutes left before we officially have to close. So I don't know, Devon, if you have any thoughts and any questions yourself for Emily, Cletus, Vicki.
We haven't heard them, and I would defer to Cletus at this time, because I've been speaking a bit more.
Hey, Cletus.
I guess it's just the people who have been working with the data and trying to get the information from everybody and get it inputted. I think having this in a database would be a easier way for development partners to regularly update, and as both Cletus, Devon, and Vicki have said, that ideally it would be a living portal where you could easily go and update and change as needed, rather than having to do a major overhaul every few years. I think as people can quickly change a few things here and there, that's always easier than a major overhaul of information, and will help the region continue to plan on a regular basis as it moves forward. So I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to get to work on this project and support you all, and look forward to hearing about how it moves forward.
Cletus?
Right. Well, thanks. Thanks to everybody for making this a very successful event. As I said at the beginning, this is work in progress. The future viability of this effort is dependent on the continued inputs of all parties, state and non-state, more particularly the donors. The CSUMs, as I indicated, is really what I'm looking for to give sustainability to this. And the fact that it will be reposed, so to speak, in the CCRI is another reason for optimism that it will continue to have legs for many, many years to come. I think so long as we're going to have donors active in the region, we're going to have the need for this kind of framework. And as I said, we need to marry this. I have in mind my vision, for example, is for us to have a 1 day, 1.5 day event every 2 years among the donors, where we can take a hard look at not just the data that is before us, but also the experiences and the results that have come out of that work, and how can we build on these results. I think that is going to be critical going forward. For my part, I am pleased about the contribution that the OES was able to make to this to bring us where we are today. And I want to pledge on behalf of my colleagues, Juan Cruz and Charlene and everybody else, and Rosie Abieto, who's doing a fair amount of work on database development herself, that I want to let you know that we pledge to continue to support this effort going forward. So thanks very much to everybody.
Thank you, Cletus. If nobody has anything else to say, I will take the last word as moderator's prerogative. Devon, before I have the last word, any last words?
Thanks, Sally. My last word is really that I echo Cletus' sentiments of work in progress. The truth is, this gives us a good platform from which to build something much more sophisticated as the need arises. But this is the starting point. Again, one of those not allowing the perfect to become an enemy of the good kind of arrangement. So the thinking is that there are significant benefits to be derived from having the database even in its current form. And there can be even more benefits that we will derive from having the kind of granular disintegration that Cletus spoke of earlier, which can, where we can begin to start seeing even details in terms of specificities of projects that are supported emerging later on as we make the database more sophisticated and more responsive to what our information needs and our knowledge preferences are. But it's a part of what I believe is critical to us being able to improve the quality of planning, which goes into the energy sector in the region, both at the development partner level as well as at the member state level and at the regional institutions level. And what we are looking for from the standpoint of the CARICOM Secretariat is an environment wherein there is greater coordination, less duplication, but most importantly, there is an atmosphere of integrity and respect and results among development partners, donors, and countries and regional institutions, so that we know that the resources that are coming into the region are delivering the maximum benefits to every single man and child who is residing in a CARICOM country, and even those who are from countries who are donating precious tax resources to support our region. So I want to thank you all.
Thank you very much, Devon. So I don't know if anybody else has any final words. Going once, going twice. We did get a congratulations for this excellent work comment that just came through, so thank you to Jorge for that note. And so on behalf of everybody on the phone, I want to thank everybody who connected to this webinar today. We appreciate that you took the time to join us. It's an important, as Devon very eloquently just stated, it's an important project that is underway and hopefully will go a long way towards contributing to the overall energy security in the region. I want to thank all the panelists. For everybody in the audience, if you are going to be at CREF next week, we all look forward to seeing you there. It's going to be a much more condensed agenda a week from now. So this was a great opportunity to get a step ahead of the game and be. So that was my phone ringing. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Sally, take care. Thank you very much, Sally. Great moderation. Thanks. All right.
Oh, no, thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.